Hello, and welcome to Healer and Dreamer Astrology. Today we're excited to talk about the astrological monthly forecast as we enter into Aquarius season, the water bearer. Sun enters into Aquarius on January 20th with Pluto this time, and it will be there until February 19th. Whatever happened to real intelligence and the paradoxical nature of truth?
Good evening, everyone. Martin Comtois ici avec my dear friend Diana Robinson. How are you doing, Diana?
I like the some French there. I am living a full life, feeling a little worn thin, but I'm okay. Yeah,
In
that's
my
the real answer.
in my process, I've really been feeling Pluto.
Yeah.
Pluto, and we talked about this in our video on the coming year, and we talked about it in our last video. By the way, our last video went so well. We did over 2,500 views, best video ever, over
Mhm.
350 hours of viewing,
Wow,
and
cool.
over 50 comments. Lots of great questions. So thank you so much for the support. But yeah, we talked a lot about Pluto, and today we're going to talk a lot about Pluto.
Hmm.
And the Sun and Pluto are entering into Aquarius together, followed by Mercury, and then Mars and Venus. And so, um,
Pluto's ruling the show.
well,
Or
this is definitely, I was thinking about it today, and how in 2020, when we started 2020 with the conjunction of Saturn and Pluto.
hmm
So during 20 to 2021, every planet made a conjunction to Pluto except Chiron, Uranus, and Neptune. So all
wow.
the personal planets and Jupiter and Saturn. And so in that sense, it reminds me of 2020. But this happens, every year around winter when the inner planets meet with Pluto.
hmm
And so, and it's a cycle, right?
And
Uh,
this flavor is going to be slightly different because it's Aquarius, right?
absolutely, absolutely,
So
absolutely.
2020, I mean, Capricorn and Aquarius do share a lot in common, even though they're different. But I could see it being maybe the next evolution, the beginning of the next evolution.
Um, we don't want Pluto to steal the show. This is a show on Aquarius and the sun on Aquarius. So why don't we see the slide?
Alrighty. So Aquarius, the water bearer.
And yeah,
Whatever.
so you go ahead. Whatever happened to real intelligence? This thing about artificial intelligence, and everybody's talking about artificial intelligence. So then, whatever happened to real intelligence? And what is it going to take for us to stop making the mistakes of the past? Um, that to me is the lesson of Aquarius. What is Aquarius um, as a sign?
Hmm.
In the evolution of the zodiac from Aries to Taurus to Gemini to Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio. This is an evolution of the year of it's a path of evolution, and we've talked recently about Sagittarius. While we talked about Scorpio, we started these videos of Scorpio, and then we did Sagittarius. So Scorpio, death and rebirth, Sagittarius, the quest for meaning, Capricorn, giving form. Aquarius is the 11th sign of the zodiac. And so, what's your lessons that you gained from Aquarius?
When I say 11th sign of the zodiac, I think of it being like almost complete, but not complete. It's not the 12th, it's not the wrap up, but it's also really far along the cycle. Aquarius to me, lessons from Aquarius have been definitely like a higher understanding of reality and a perception of um, I want to say reality, but it feels like kind of an overused term, but it is very much that. It's like within a social circumstance, within a bigger circumstance of our world. I find those who really connect with the Aquarius archetype are very good at like perceiving all everything at once and then giving a really like kind of cold and dry but really accurate presentation on whatever the situation is that we're talking about or the circumstance. There's a ability to really like view the full spectrum and then be concise about things at times.
Well, Aquarius is an air sign
Mm-hmm.
and it is a fixed sign. So fixed
Intellect.
means, it's pretty convinced about its ideas.
Yeah.
And usually Aquarian ideas are quite in confrontation with the collective.
Yeah.
The evolution of the zodiac, Aquarius looks at what Capricorn has built and what the ideal of Sagittarius was and the experience of rebirth that Scorpio was. It says, well, I think we can do better. It comes, it's the third air sign.
Mm-hmm.
It's the last of the air signs. It's like, okay, so ideologies. And we're quite convinced that we know.
Mm-hmm.
In contrast to Leo, who's the creative power of the individual, Aquarius is the objectivity of the individual in terms of where does he stand in the evolution of the collective. So then we're talking about a a concern with the evolution of the community versus the opposite of the individual. And so that's a each sign, each axis of the zodiac is a paradox.
Mm-hmm.
And here we have the paradox of the individual and its community. And how does the individual thrive, and how does the community thrive, and how do we evolve? So,
And that's
the,
kind of what you were tapping into with the slides too, where we were talking about like the paradoxical nature of truth.
exactly, I think that what happens with Aquarius is that it can get quite convinced about his own ideas and will not look at the other point of view.
Mm.
And so the paradoxical nature of truth, the truth of any debate is found in the middle,
Mm.
and both angles are opportunities to see the other person's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
If we can see the other person's point of view, then our point of view becomes enhanced and we find the truth in the middle.
Mm.
So that truth is paradoxical and it's dialectic.
Yeah.
And so the evolution of Leo Aquarius about what the real nature of truth is. And that's what air signs are about, right? Gemini, seeking; Libra, justice; Aquarius, idealist. What's the best utopic vision? So that's let's look back at the slide.
The other piece for Aquarius is the community. So like when
Yeah.
you first said it, I pictured like Capricorn making all these structures, like you're building a town or something. There's all these buildings. And then Aquarius is like all the people go in and now they're trying to make the system in this brand new building. And so it's all these people, how do they work together? What's the ideal? How do you make organized systems that your mind and communication thought patterns work with in an efficient way that are also making you evolve? I don't know. That's I just got this picture
Yep.
of like little beings coming into a
Yep. That sounds beautiful. That's
into a
beautiful.
building. um, it's a
So the
complex thing.
paradoxical nature of truth. So then that brings us to the axis of Leo and Aquarius. So the individual versus the community. So individuality versus idealism. This paradox between the two. How, and let's look back at the picture.
Sure.
Um, if you look at Saturn,
Oh yeah, these.
so Saturn was foretold that one of his sons would kill him and become the king of the gods.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he got in the habit of eating his children. So you see here, he's eating his child. So so Saturn
Mm.
wants to hold on to authority, and here we have the negative aspects, shadow aspects of Aquarius, in that it doesn't want to let go of power.
Right.
And so that's the great shadow of Aquarius, is that I'm so convinced that I know the truth that I'm not willing to listen to another. As a matter of fact, if you have a better idea, I'm gonna eat you up. which is very dangerous. And we talk about the age of Aquarius, so yeah, for sure. So individuality versus idealism. Can you
Mm.
can you be idealistic with and still remain an individual and not allow that idealism to eat you up, to still remain open to other individuals? So that's the great challenge associated. And so we have Saturn there, and then underneath there we have the picture of Prometheus, the light bringer. And so
Other,
Uranus,
otherwise known as Uranus. Yeah.
right, well, Prometheus is one of the myths that's associated the most with Uranus. I have another picture in the next slide of Uranus that's more ancient, but let's go back to Uranus, the light bringer, Prometheus, the light bringer. So he brought light to humanity. So then we have Saturn, ruler of Aquarius, and then we have Uranus. So then the paradox in Aquarius is so strong because you have two contradicting archetype. You have Saturn, the master of time and rebirth and discipline and all that, mastery, and then Uranus, the light bringer, who seeks to bring about evolution. So who wants to break the cycle of
Mm.
Saturnian devouring of the creative possibilities. And so it's a conflicted sign in that way. And one of the things that you need to remember is Leo is a sign that the sun is exalted in. So that means Aquarius is the sign where the sun is
Detriment.
in detriment. So then the
Mm.
sun, this is the darkest part of the year, and we tend, this is a difficult, dark, we've been in the dark a quarter of the year now for 2 months, and now it's like the darkness is getting to us. So we want some light. The sun is depleted, our energy is depleted. So
Especially closer to the North Pole you get.
so in that sense, the individuality of the Leo archetype is the weakest in Aquarius, because
Mhm.
so then it presents some real challenges, and that Saturn Uranus. So
Which is interesting because, like, Saturn ruling the ego and self is like discipline and structure, but that often really can limit your relationships with others if that leads the show. And then Uranus is the same. Like, Uranus is even though it's this like light bringer and it brings so much intelligence and maybe like not far out thinking, but like I don't know, brilliance, let's say, it's also when you're embodying that energy, you also have a harder time interacting with society. And Uranus is one of the collective planets. So they're both like really beneficial to the community, but on a personal level, it's usually harder to live out that archetype in a happy, healthy way.
that's the breakdown a little bit of Sun in Aquarius. Let's
Mm.
look at the next slide and see what we got in terms of um, alchemical opportunities. So Sun will be in Aquarius from January 20th to February 19th. And first it starts with the Sun conjunct Pluto. So as soon as the Sun enters into Aquarius, it enters into a conjunction with Pluto. And we've been talking lots about that. And you'll see in the course of the month, every inner planet makes a conjunction with Pluto. So the theme of Pluto conjunction, starting with the Sun. So how do you feel right now? How's this weekend for you? What have you been confronted with? And the last new moon was almost in conjunction with Pluto. That means the sun. That means that after the new moon, we had a moon conjunction Pluto, and then the sun's been getting closer and closer to Pluto. So the reality of facing the ancestral gift and the ancestral rage and the ancestral curse and the relationship, our relationship with the great mother. I don't know, I felt like really, well, we've had a big cold front and snow, and I was confronted with that reality of Pluto, and how do you experience Pluto? Pluto being so distant. One of our viewers asked the question, does that mean that an outer planet, because they were discovered,
Mm,
recently, does it mean that they always had their effect? And so synchronistically, yes. And I pointed to the book Cosmos and Psyche, where Richard Tarnas maps out all the history of humanity last 3,000 years according to cycles of the outer planets. So so then this Pluto, it's a collective power. So what does that mean in our particular consciousness? We mostly experience Pluto unconsciously.
and yet we're living in a time where we're aware of Pluto. Like it's crazy that we know about Pluto. We found it with the tools we've made. Like we're in a time where it's becoming more aware, which is really cool to me.
We're aware of it, but in terms of how do you feel Pluto in a day to day, right?
Integrating is a whole other thing.
Well, integrating it, and the reality is, like, I don't know about you, but I've been kind of a dark cave,
Hmm.
and that's how we experience Pluto. It's kind of a just a dark, because we can't pinpoint what it's about or what's going on. It's like a deep gestation. Like we say, Pluto is what is dying within us so that I can be reborn to a higher, ex, uh, you know, octave of expression. So, so I think that most of us, generally, all of us experience Pluto unconsciously as a deep, dark struggle for existence against the power of the mother, like it's freezing cold out, it's snowing, there are events that I cannot control, that I cannot understand rationally. It's just whoa, and so with that's does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that. As we're talking about that, I think about like personally in my experience with Pluto, I find there's this part of me that wants to show up for service for the world and for myself and for my community and my family and friends and the world in general. And then there's this part of me that does just want to be in a dark hole. And I've kind of like and be totally self-contained and alone. And I've had that struggle my whole life. And Pluto is pretty powerfully aspected in my chart. But then as you were talking, I also think about how this war right now in Gaza that's getting a lot of attention, duly like fair attention, is a lot of people I've seen rise up to the occasion to speak for it and fight for it and work for it, at least here in Canada. There's a lot of people with Pluto in Libra, which is kind of going through a square right now with Capricorn and wrapping that up. And there's this call to justice. So I'm really curious to see what's going to happen for this next generation with Pluto and Scorpio when it starts getting coming squared and challenged as Pluto goes into Aquarius. So there's this like generational aspect, which we kind of got into in our last video on Pluto and Aquarius. But yeah, this Pluto is like this call to do something that seems, and in my personal process lately, it's like a call to do something that seems almost like you can't control it. Like the call is just eating you alive and you have to follow through.
When we did also the video about 2024, we talked about how the tone of winter was going to be dictated by Pluto, and that when spring comes, then we're going to talk a lot about the Uranus Jupiter conjunction. But especially for the month of Aquarius, the theme is all these conjunctions with Pluto. So we're talking lots about that. Let's see what else is going on.
And the next full moon will also. That's probably what's next on here.
Yes, yes. We'll do a video on that next week. So then the 25th is the Leo full moon in Aquarius at 5 degrees. Pluto's at 1 degree. So, yes, this full moon will be in a direct angle with Pluto as well. So, then that Pluto flavor is still with us. Then on the 26th, a very fun little Sun square Jupiter in fixed signs. That'll be energetic.
I could see there being the calling to what you maybe need to process or do in your life. And the next day, there's that Jupiter gump to act on it.
Mm-hmm. Then the 27, Mercury Mars conjunction. That's good at 17 Capricorn. So Mercury and Mars conjunction in Capricorn. What does that resonate with you? Actually, we have a chart, the next chart over. We'll talk about more about that in our next slide here. But so let's keep going with February 5th, Sun sextile Chiron.
February 5th as well, Mercury and Pluto will conjunct at 0 degrees Aquarius. So now Mercury's turn to conjunct Pluto.
So then that's going to be setting the tone for the year of the dragon. And then we have the 8th, Sun square Uranus, which, then between Jupiter and Uranus, the Sun will square both of them in those couple of weeks there. And that's going to be the telling alignment for the spring. So kind of a preview of coming attraction. Then on the 9th of February, we have the Aquarius new moon. On the 13th, Mars conjunct Pluto. Oh, no, that's the 15th. Or is it the 13th? Oh, the 13th.
13.
And the 17th, Venus Pluto conjunction.
And then on February 19th, that's a wrap. Sun moves into Pisces, the
And
last
then
and final sign.
And then a few days after that, the Venus Mars conjunction.
Yes.
And so lots to cover on that, but those are the major events. And we started a new little feature to these videos, and that is the chart of the month. And so here's the chart of the 28th, which is the day after the Venus-Mars conjunction. You see the Venus-Mars conjunction there? And the Venus...
Mercury.
Mercury-Mars conjunction, I'm sorry. And the Mercury-Mars conjunction is in a grand trine with the moon and Uranus.
Powerful. Double grand trine.
Well, there's 2 grand trine there and lots of earth signs, moon in Virgo, Venus, Mercury, and Mars in Capricorn, and then Jupiter and Uranus. So that's a 6th planet.
That weekend, next weekend, the 26th, 7th, and 8th, there's one thing after another that's going to really be pushing us to propel us into our next highest evolution. Definitely a time to take space for yourself and really listen to what's needed, because it could be a time of radical life transformation and evolution.
It's also because of a Earth grand trine. It'll be a very good time to manifest intentions, to pray and to manifest things into reality, to get stuff done with all these planets and Earth signs. And then they form, the moon is in direct opposition to Saturn, forming a grand kite with those 5 planets. So then we have a 7 planet grand kite, double grand trine Earth. That's like, whoa. So I thought that would be a very good chart to base our kind of expectations of this coming month, and the date to keep track of, January 28th.
It's a good date to pull out for sure. It's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
I like practical genius and super manifesting, and the creative discipline and enthusiasm. Those are great tools.
Mm-hmm. So you have some medicines that you wanted to chat to us about.
Yeah. So Aquarius, Aquarius of the body, I've changed it to because I think all of our bodies are fractal expressions of that which is internal and external from us. So Aquarius in the body, it rules our calves and our ankles. So as we follow the energy down from our head, following it down, and then how the planets go is actually from the feet all the way up. So it's a twofold motion in our system. The calves and the ankles help us get around, but they're also right before we touch the ground. So they're kind of that windy quality where we're running, we're really engaging our calves and our ankles. It's also in our nervous system, it's the nerve impulses and the venous circulation. So, for those who don't know, venous circulation, when the heart pumps out, it goes to the arteries. That would be the sun quality. The sun really rules and is a huge contributor of the circulation property of our body. And then after the blood goes out to all the extremities and feeds and nourishes all the cells, then the blood keeps pumping back towards the heart and the lungs to get new nutrients. And that's what we'd consider the venous circulation. So the coming back of the blood to be renourished and rehydrated. In tissue salts, that is NatMer, tissue salt number 9, and it's also known as the water balancer. So this is a really wonderful cell salt to help balance moisture in the body, whether that's holding on to excess moisture and you're seeing things like edema show up in the body, or it's not enough moisture, and then you'd see symptoms like not enough saliva or a loss of taste. Can also show up like dry sinuses or excess sinuses, so draining sinuses. If you tend to have a really watery nose all the time, for instance. Sore throat can show up like that. Cracking joints can be a sign, so that dryness, there's not enough hyaluronic acid and other nutrients going into the joints of the body. Restless muscles and twitching, because the fluid balancing of the blood versus the internal cells is not balancing out properly. And then eczema, which would be a dryness in the skin, for example. This cell salt's also really helping to process grief, because grief can really shock the system, especially in our lungs. And it can really help make sure that the flow of water and the flow of emotions, for instance, continues to happen. So that's some ways that NatMer can really support the body, and NatMer is associated with Aquarius. It's also known as sodium chloride, but just as a reminder, cell salts are diluted and used in a energetic property, so it would not be quite the same as just taking table salt, for instance.
So, what are some of the things that we could eat to support our system in such a time of Aquarius?
Well, so NatMer is sodium chloride at a base, which would show up in all salts in the body, in
Okay.
the world. So whether that is Celtic sea salt, which is very popular right now, or Himalayan salt, or just regular sea salt, all of those would contain NatMer in them. So making sure you're getting a good healthy salt supply. Even things like seaweed would have NatMer in them.
Okay.
And then I left the herbal component out because I'm working on a separate herbal slides as a whole separate practice with my studies with Sage Predum. But the primary herb for Aquarius season is valerian. So because Aquarius rules our nerve impulses and that which comes back, if the energy goes out with the sun and it gets overstimulated, that's what comes back. And in our highly overstimulating world, especially if your intellectual aspects of Aquarius are there, then it can be draining. And so valerian really helps to calm, sedate, settle, so that you can have a healthy, energetic flow. So
that was when you were talking, I was thinking, that, a good way to express Pluto, or a good way that Pluto is expressed in our process, is in grief. So then to process the grief, I think a lot of us are processing grief. But one question that I had for you is, you know, because Aquarius is opposite of Leo, and because the sun is weak in Aquarius, then would things that support the sun, would be valuable then at that point? So then, to what point does the things from the opposite sign support? Is that too deep of a question?
no, I don't think that's a thing. I think it's a good to acknowledge, but to keep also in mind of what your nature's surrounding you with. So, despite the fact that the sun is in detriment in Aquarius, and so it needs some more tender love and care, you wouldn't also want to put all your energy towards that. So, things that were really flush in Leo season, like St. John's wort,
Mm-hmm.
here in the northern hemisphere, would be very supportive during Aquarius season. They really help regulate
That's
the nervous system.
uh-huh.
They help to charge and keep the strength and vitality, the being strong. But I wouldn't be eating like it was Leo season. So having a ton of raw salads, that's not going to help support the nervous system very well because it's already dampened um and slower. And so it's all about coming back into the heart versus getting all this energy pumping out into the body. Obviously, exercise is appropriate all times a year, but anything that really gets the cardiovascular system would be really supportive right now. So even if that was a simple walk every day,
Right.
yeah.
Hard when it's such a winterish condition, but
Mm-hmm.
also I find myself craving iron
Mm.
and and nettle, and find my heart being a little bit needing maybe even of the vitamin D and all of that, so yeah, the
Yeah,
sun needing to be,
vitamin D is a good point. Is the opposition to Leo that we really need to do.
and really been doing a lot of vitamin C as well. So supporting the system in the
Mm-hmm.
dark side of the year is really important. So that's our video for you. How was that for you?
Good. Yeah, Aquarius is it's a hard one to talk about and dissect because it is quite complicated, but I think that relationship between Saturn and Uranus really I also visualize it like the two way like the symbol of Aquarius is the two waves, one on top of each other,
Mm-hmm.
perpendicular, and um I often look at that like Saturn and Uranus. So yeah, they want to fight for each the
You mean pair?
mythology with it is that they're fighting each other, but really when you can find a way to make them both have their spot, that's when harmony can happen.
You mean parallel?
Parallel, yes. Thank you.
Perpendiculars.
Oh yeah, other way. Thanks.
And yeah, I think supporting our ourselves through this, and allowing for grieving
Mhm.
of the Pluto archetype, and yeah, being really well resourced in your practice and giving a voice to your ancestors. Thank you so much for supporting us and supporting this channel as we grow along. Thank you, Diana, for your time and your devotion in sharing and helping me make working together to make these videos happen. It's awesome.
It is. I'm so grateful. Thank you, Martin.
You're so welcome. Thanks, you guys. We'll catch you on the next one. Whoop, whoop,
Yeah.
whoop.
Over and out. Happy Aquarius season to you all.